This one is going to be about installing an LSP or language server protocol in Vim. I made this video because I see a lot of discussions online and articles written where the author either doesn't realize that Vim supports an LSP or tried to configure it and found the process so overwhelming that it was easier to switch to a completely different editor. Or maybe tried a VS Code for the first time, saw some of the features, and is now wanting to come back and see if these things are available in Vim. I even heard Guido van Rossum, the man who created Python, on the Lex Friedman podcast, say that he never tried an LSP in the many years that he was using Emacs, and he didn't encounter that until I think it was PyCharm. That was the first alternative that he tried, and he saw what these LSPs could do. If you were just beginning your journey as a programmer, the complexity of setting this up in relation to the complexity of the average problems you will face as a programmer is minuscule. I want you to use whatever editor makes you happy, whatever, or productive. But I don't believe that this particular problem warrants consideration in your decision for what you will end up sitting in front of for the hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of hours you end up programming. So I wanted to make this video to show how simple it could be to get these features into Vim. These are the plugins I have installed. These four almost come as a set. If you go to the GitHub page for any one of them, you will see references to the other three. There is some flexibility. You could install different things for autocomplete or configure your LSP servers yourself, but let's treat them as a set. I also have Copilot because I want to show how many features you can pack into a minimal Vim configuration. You can see here that I don't even have a color scheme or syntax highlighting installed. I still have the Windows up on my Gmail or GVim. So really this is very, very little configuration. With that, what can we do? I'm going to open a blank Python file. As soon as I start typing, you can see in beautiful default hot pink that I have autocomplete. We'll just import pathlib, and if I were using this in earnest, I'd have a shortcut set up or a mapping, but I'll just type out the command LSP definition, and here I am right in pathlib. It's taking me to the pathlib module where I can look around and see whatever I need to see. And here we go. Also, the AI is already kicking in, and it's giving me a command. Let's go with that. Okay, it's writing a program here for us already. And now I'll use that. Let's try. I'm going to park here and type LSP rename. It's going to allow me to rename this variable path. Beautiful. Go here too and look at LSP definition for path. Now it's taking us back to pathlib, but this time it's right on the class definition of path, so you can get right there. Write a function. I want something with arguments. Let's just there we go. So I have a function. Now when I call that function, we're not going to let the AI do it. We're going to do it ourselves. I see a pop-up with the function signature in it, so I can see what the variables are and what the types are. Had I put a doc string, I would see the doc string too. And we have an error because the AI put in the string A and not a value for A. So the error comes up, argument of type literal cannot be assigned a parameter. So I have now artificial intelligence, auto-completion, symbol-based navigation, renaming of function names, and error identification, and more, all set up in my Vim editor. Let's look at what configuration was necessary to make that happen. This is my entire vim-rc. Before we look at any of it, if you can see my mouse pointer, there's a blue line here that has popped up from my plugins that have done this for me. I deleted my language server for Vim before I started this video, so now I get a line. If you can't read it, it says please do :lsp install server to enable language server Vim language server. Let's do what it asks. I'm going to type this command, and now it's installing my language server. It's done that for me. I'm on Windows. This buries it down in my app data folder for my user. Close that, and that's all I've had to do to install a language server now for Vim files. The actual configuration was copied right from the vim-lsp GitHub page. I haven't made any edits. I did take out the mappings. There were some mappings in this gap, only because it makes the configuration look a lot more complex than it is. Those mappings are optional, and you can put in whatever mappings you like. I've even left in this function that only calls the function on LSP buffer enabled if you're in a file type that has LSP buffer enabled. I've left the comments in, and we're still this. I could have trimmed this down to 5 or 6 lines, but I left everything in here to make it look just like the documentation. And you can see that this is all it takes to have all of the features that we've reviewed. So if you haven't tried it, or if you tried it and found it complex, or if one of the larger plugins, there was a knowledge gap and you couldn't get through it, or you got tired of reading through all of the documentation, you can try it this way and have everything on Vim. If Vim's not the editor for you, that's great. Then go to something else and find something that makes you happy. The most important thing with the amount of time that we spend doing this is that what we're looking at brings us some joy. But don't use this as your reason to select another editor that you might not like as much.